And set up parameters. All right. I just want to do a story about some of the places I've been, and I want to talk about a route that I've taken many a times when the Oregon I-84 was completely screwed up. And it's kind of a back way. It's convenient if you happen to start off at a place called Salem, Oregon. Many a times I've gotten a load south after unloading somewhere in Washington or somewhere else, and they send me down to Henderson's cold storage. And after you get loaded there, which it'll be beautiful in Oregon, then you'll have to go back. You kind of have a choice. If you go on the 84, which I don't know if it's really any faster. It just depends on the time of year. The 84 can get pretty bad once you get past Pendleton. And you get up on top of Cabbage Hill, and if they have the chain law on, that chain law might extend all the way to Ontario. So there's a way you can get past that. And sometimes, if the pass isn't already closed, you can get through it. It's beautiful territory. It's absolutely beautiful territory, the drive. It's Highway 22 in Oregon. And you're going through there. It starts out on I-5, and then eventually you hop onto the freeway, off the freeway and onto this 4-lane, basically small freeway for a while. But then it goes down to being a regular highway, and you pass through a beautiful number of beautiful little logging towns. There's places along that route where you're right next to the river. So if you were going to be van lifing it, you could like park here, go fishing all day, then drive to the next pullout, park there, maybe camp for the night, go fishing all day. Hell, I've even parked when I was trucking. I've parked a number of times in a few different areas that I knew would have safe in and out, because you got to plan on that. So you got to really know the area. Parked there and basically just walked into the woods and got naked and took a bath in the bushes. There's a river. I'm like, oh, he loved to go swimming with naked women and swim between their legs. Song Colonel Potter sang on MASH. But there's been times I've driven that route during winter, and you're going through there, and there'll be snow, there'll be ice. Hopefully the road's being taken care of. I've been through there in the middle of winter when quite literally it was snowing pretty good. And luckily the road, they sprayed it with the de-icer and whatnot. It was, I've been on solid ice and snow, but still it's Peterbilt. It's heavily loaded. Should be fine. I haven't had the chain in years. And that's one of my rules to some degree. I don't mind if I have to, I'll chain, but if I don't have to, I'll just pull over and say the truck is worth more, the load is worth more, my life, and God forbid that if something goes horribly wrong and somebody else gets involved, their life is worth something too. Okay? So that's one thing I tell a lot of people when it comes to dispatchers. Know when to say no, because you gotta have some self-worth, and your boss will understand probably more likely than you. But if you can't handle that type of lifestyle of driving, you really shouldn't be in a truck. I'm just gonna be honest. There's a lot of people out there who I know can't handle it. And this is one of the things when they talk about automation. I'm like, well, enjoy that winter driving, robot. That's gonna be fun to watch. But once you get up a ways in there's this beautiful place called Detroit Lake. And you're just kind of doing the curves. How many of you rode motorcycle? I don't know why. Oh, there's a nice truck right there. Spud, big ass grain hauler, spud hauler. It's kind of a farm town, so big surprise. Hear that big motor roaring. But yeah. Where's he going? I don't think he's going in front of me. Well, he got a loud ass motor though. Anyhow, you're going through that area, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And there was ages ago there was a huge fire. When you get to where the roads connect, one route goes this way, and you're not supposed to take trucks on it, but you can keep on following this way, and then you start hitting the pass, the Santiam Pass, and you get up there. And then you can see where the big fire had happened a number of years ago. It's pretty incredible. You can also see some of the volcanic activity. You look at the rock formations and whatnot, and you're like, okay. When you get to the top of the pass, because it's a ways up there, you're going to be, if you got a fully loaded Peterbilt, you're going to be flipping the four ways on, and just you're taking the slow lane. You just pick your gears, take your time. But you get up to the top, maybe take a moment just to look at the scenery up there. It's goddamn beautiful. It's amazing. And after that, when you're going to go down the mountain, obviously pick a good low gear, something you can always maintain, and then just use your Jakes. Turn on your four ways. I guess some people might get mad. Oh, I'm stuck behind a slow track. It's better to, if you never have to use your brakes going down the hill, that's the way you want to do it. That's what your Jakes are for. That's what your gears are for. And you get down the hill. By the way, there's some cool looking stuff down the hill too. You can see from the view on the way down. You see, basically, you get into the pine tree forest of eastern Washington or eastern Oregon. Same basic environment, by the way. It's absolutely gorgeous. And eventually you end up driving through the town of Sisters. Now, if I remember right, they have a festival there, and there's a quilt festival. And by the way, if you're near Sisters, you're not too far from Wikiup Reservoir. Absolute paradise zone to camp at. I'll talk about it another time. And so, yeah, you get through there. And when I was a kid, we were actually at Wikiup South Twin, and we got ran out of our camp because there was the biggest forest fire that year happened. We saw the lightning strikes happen, and we're like, oh shit. And that was back when there was no bypass. Now there is a bypass. I have driven a truck through that town so many times though, and if I remember right, it's the Highway 20. And this is where we get into the name of the Snow Shadow. Many a times when I-84 is complete crap, cabbage going east to Ontario, where you have to chain up. That eastern part of Oregon is way cleaner. So you're going through Bend, and there's a really good pull-off spot near where there's kind of a drop scale sometimes out there right past Bend. Sometimes you just get done. You get done at the end of the day, you're running out of hours, and you happen to know where someplace is safe to park, and that's one of them. If you make it even further, though, you're going along there, there's a rest area out in the middle of nowhere, and there's one place where there's I don't know if it's really parkable, but there's a gas station. Yeah, there's this little town as you're going. And by the way, when you're going out there is nothing for a lot of eastern Oregon. Once you get past the trees, the Cascades, and the Burns, it's a lot of not the Burns, but then there's a lot of ranch land. And then wasteland, waste ranch. There's farmland, waste ranch. And this is pretty much something where you just have cattle out there. Occasionally, maybe you'll see an antelope. Not much out there in all the years I've driven through there. But eventually you get to a place called Burns. Burns used to have a rail line through there. It used to have a wood mill. They used to make, I think, panels for TVs or something like that. And it's kind of a cool little place. You drive through, maybe hit up the grocery store. If you find a place to park, just a couple truck stops there. The old, I don't know if it's still there, but the old chimney from the mill, old smokestack still there. Not much left of the mill though. And after you get past Burns, it's a ways till you get to another town. But at that point, you're starting to hit some of those mountains on the other side. And you start getting a little more grass, some farmlands for a brief part. And then eventually you're going up these hills, And it's kind of a lot of lists, kind of like when you're motorcycling, you do a little this, a little that. Perfect road to drive a 13 speed on. Eventually you get to the top of another huge ass hill, and you look down and you can see this kind of seasonal lake. And I've seen some beautiful rainbows out there, like light rains. And this is the part of eastern Oregon that there really isn't much out there, because the next town you get to before the big dead zone, I don't know if it's called Juanita or Wong something. It starts with a J. I can't pronounce it. But that's where you start seeing that railroad that they tore up again. And that's where you get to this point where after you get past that tiny little town, all it is some big cottonwoods, places to park, a restaurant, maybe a post office. It's a little tiny farming town, way smaller than this place. I think we have 1,000 people. I would guess that place has 100. You take the curve like this, and then you get into the big nothing. And I can't remember what the river's called, but it basically follows the 20 and it zigzags like this. And I've always had an insanely, I don't know, since I was a little kid, we had railroads over on this side of the state. We moved over to where there were no railroads. And I always found it interesting. Why was the railroad there? What was the purpose of it? You know, like there was, if you had a railroad, there was always purpose. Well, the purpose was the trees and the mill and some of the resources. And before we had big trucks to move cattle, they moved cattle that way. But yeah, they tore out the rails, I think, back in the early 2000s. And you're following this river like this, and you get to this point where, you know, those places in America where there is no cell phone signal? It's like that for 50 miles at least. And the curves are awesome. You know, there's a few places where you can pull over and it's just like, welcome to the great nothing. You know, once again, there's a few places where I pulled over, and there's a few farms here and there, and this desolate valley, you know, and you look at it and you think people really lived here. You know, there's a few people that still live there. And I guess, I don't know, if they have a satellite phone or maybe there's landline. I don't fucking know. I mean, but yeah, as you go along, eventually you get through there and then it starts opening up. And there's this big, at night, you'll see this big plant on the distance. And they take clay out there because just every once in a while you have one of those big trucks, heavy haulers that you see pulling clay with the light, kind of like the sugar beet haulers over when you pass through Idaho, you know, the circular light. And it's a big kitty litter plant out there. There's like, you know, like you see the rail actually picks up and actually exists to a certain degree there. And once you get out in that valley for a ways, and then it's real farmland. You pass through, it's not Nissa. I don't think it's Nissa. I can't remember what the name of the town is. It's not Nissa though, because Nissa has a ton of onions. God, fuck it. Yeah, there's a tiny little town on the other side. Was it Val, something like that? I can't remember. But you get on that side, and then you cross the river, and then you're in Oregon. Or Idaho, leaving Oregon into Idaho. After that, usually what you do is you go north little ways, and that pretty much takes you right by a Love's truck stop, and it dumps you out at the I-84. But that route is absolutely beautiful, and there are times where the 84 is just completely swamped. Now, would I want to be stuck behind a slow truck on that route? Not necessarily, but I have been that slow truck a number of times, and you just pull over and let people pass. But it's a really cool highway to drive. You know, in fact, a lot of America's that way. I mean, I've zigzagged all over the country. I've taken some back ways sometimes just to avoid tolls because I was like, I don't want to pay the toll. I wasn't even paying the toll. It was the company, but I don't know, I just didn't want to fucking go that way. But yeah, I've had a ball traveling this country, and I just thought I'd tell a story that's a little less political and a little less offensive and just part of America. Because, you know, part of the reason I like being a drifter and van lifing is because of the randomness. Like, I couldn't handle doing the same loads all the time. I did that when I moved garbage for a living, and it was okay. But honest to God, I love the random chaos of driving an OTR rig. And someday it won't exist. But for now, the last handful of years of my dinosauric species still exist. I'm going to enjoy it, you know, because there's big money to be made for now. When it's all over, when the music's over, like the song says, turn off the lights. Peace.